Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ethics Week. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me clearly. All right, great. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Ethics Week 2022. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Ashley Cooks, the Director of the Office of Government Ethics, and I am pleased to present the introduction as well as ethics updates today. So if you're not familiar with Ethics Week, this is our week-long event where we provide ethics trainings, best practices, and tips so that you can stay ethical, so that the government can remain ethical. Our goal is to maintain an ethical and transparent government. So welcome. This is our third year providing Ethics Week as a virtual weekly event. This year's theme is Ethics in Practice. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I hope that you guys join us for the rest of the week because we have a lot of interesting presentations and panel discussions scheduled for you all. So let's get started. So what does it mean when we say ethics in practice? What are we talking about? Ethics in practice. Pretty normal statement, but ethics in practice actually involves applying the ethics rules to practical situations, and then making a choice whether to engage in certain conduct that is in line with the ethics rules or that violate the ethics rules. So that's what we mean when we say ethics in practice. So first, you have to recognize that there's an issue. Second, apply the rules to the practical situation. And third, choose whether to engage in conduct that violates the rules or that the rules allow. So let's talk about recognizing an issue, because that's the first step, right? You have to know that the conduct or that the situation presents an ethics issue. Knowing or recognizing first involves knowing the rules, right? So if you've attended some of our ethics trainings, if you're familiar with our office, you know that we provide training on each topic within the code of conduct. So if you've attended one of our trainings, then you know you pretty much know the ethics rules. So having knowledge of the ethics rules is the first step. Then sometimes there's situations where you don't know that there's a rule that applies, but you have a gut feeling that this situation may be something that calls into question whether I should engage in certain conduct. It's a situation that we like to say the situations that make you go, maybe this is something that I should ask someone about before I engage in it. That's that gut feeling that you get, that maybe this situation is not at all ethical, or it's something that I maybe shouldn't do, or it's not permitted by the rules or by the statute, and I should contact someone. Then there's those common sense situations where there's conduct, there's a situation, there's an issue where you state, it's common knowledge that you shouldn't engage in this particular situation, in this particular act. So that's the first step, is recognizing that there is an ethics issue by knowledge of the rules, a gut feeling, or common sense. And then there is applying the rules to your situation. So that takes, again, that knowledge, and you may say, maybe it's an instance where you've been offered a gift and you state, I know that there's some gift rules, there's some regulations about employees accepting gifts, and then you've been offered the gift and you apply those rules to that situation when you're offered the gift. So that's the practical part of it. But the key really is the choice. So you can have knowledge, you can recognize that there's a situation, you can apply the rule, but you then have to make the choice not to engage in that particular conduct. So the choice is really the key. Choices, we all make choices every day. We make choices that affect us personally. We make choices that affect others. So the choice is really the key. So every day we make choices of what we're going to wear, what we're going to eat, where we live. Of course, those choices affect only us. Majority in a majority sense, but there are some choices that demonstratively affect others. Choices of whether to engage in certain activity, criminal activity that violates the ethics rules. Of course, those are the types of choices that affect others, right? So you're affecting the district government, you're affecting the taxpayers. Um, those types of activities that clearly affect others. Those are the type of choices that we have to be mindful of when we decide whether we're going to engage in certain conduct, especially when it comes to ethics. So again, choices, choices, choices. We have those choices that we have the ability to choose whether to engage in conduct that violates the ethics rules or conduct that does not. So a good example, I've already given an example of accepting gifts, but maybe it's a situation where you're given the opportunity to engage in some conduct that may call into question your financial interest. So maybe you are allowed to participate in some type of panel for a grant or some type of contracting panel, and then you have some type of financial ties to one of the entities that has applied. You may be faced with a situation where you have to make a choice whether you're going to participate in that actual panel or make a recommendation, or whether you're going to recuse. It may be another instance where you are a person who uses a government vehicle. You're faced with a choice of whether you're going to use the vehicle to perform your district duties or use it for personal usage, which is not allowed by the ethics rules. So again, choices, 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 knowing the rules, applying the rules, and then making the choice not to engage in conduct that violates the rules. That is what we mean by ethics in practice. Okay, here I talk about accepting gifts again. If you're offered a gift from a prohibited source, let's say an employee is offered a gift from a vendor. That vendor may have some items that the employee's agency wants to purchase. The vendor offers the employee the gift. Um, that is prohibited. That vendor is a prohibited source. So the ethics rule states that employees are prohibited from accepting gifts from prohibited sources. That employee that is faced with this situation will apply that rule to that practical situation and then choose not to accept the gift, excuse me, choose not to accept the gift. So that is ethics in practice. Okay, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but here's a situation. This is just an example of recognizing an ethics issue. An employee is given the opportunity to serve on a grant panel to review applications. The employee will make recommendations as to which company will receive a grant. A company that the employee has 20% ownership in applies for the grant. That is recognizing, okay, at that point, the employee says, hey, this is an issue. A company that I'm affiliated with has applied to this grant and I am a part of the panel. So those are the key signs of recognizing that this is an ethics issue. And then thinking about, applying the rule. So the conflict of interest rule prohibits employees from using their official title or participating through decision, recommendation, or otherwise in contracts, grants, judicial proceedings, and other matters that would have a direct and predictable effect on that employee's financial interests or the financial interests of a person closely affiliated with that employee. So then there's the choice. The first option is that the employee can serve on the panel without disclosing his relationship to the company. The second choice is that the employee can disclose that ownership relationship and recuse or either not participate on the panel, the team at all. That would just depend on the facts. So this employee will be faced with two choices. The first choice is obviously a violation of the rule. The employee has to disclose when he has a conflict of interest. So if he does not disclose, he has violated the ethics rules. He's violated the Ethics Act. The second choice is the better option. The rules require disclosure when there is a financial conflict of interest. And that employee, depending on the facts, can either recuse or not participate in the panel, in the grant panel at all. So again, it's all about choices. We recognize that there was an issue. We applied the rules. We applied the ethics rule, and here, this situation, the conflict of interest rule, and then the employee made a choice. So that is ethics in practice. And that is what we strive to get employees to do on a daily basis when we provide advice. We often give employees the analysis that we use to come up with the conclusion of whether they can and cannot engage in certain conduct. So this is ethics in practice, and this is our goal, to have employees to recognize an issue, apply the rule, and then make the right choice that is in line with the rule. All right, again, we provide advice to employees on questionable situations. So when someone is in that recognized phase, this is a situation. This is questionable. I don't know if I should engage in this conduct. The hairs on the back of your neck start to stand up. Anything that causes you to recognize that this is a questionable situation, contact BEGA, contact your ethics counselor. We can provide you with advice on that situation. We also conduct our live webinars. We have on-demand ethics trainings for those types of situations. If you're in a recognized situation and you want to apply the rules, we have on-demand trainings that you can access at any time that would help you make a decision of whether to choose the right option, the permissible option, rather than the prohibited option, the prohibited conduct. All right, so the way that we have been applying ethics in practice, we have, again, been providing advice. We have issued 2 advisory opinions this past fiscal year. The first one is outside employment and private representation, and both of these are listed on our website. They're both in draft right now because they're in the 30-day comment period at the DC Register. So the first one, again, is outside employment and private representation. That opinion deals with the outside employment restrictions and the District Personnel Manual, Section 1807. And it also talks about private representation as it applies to board and commission members, how they are prohibited from engaging in certain conduct before the board that they serve on, as well as the agency that supports that board. And we're actually going to have a presentation, I believe it's on Thursday, that goes into that advisory opinion and those rules. And then we've issued a second opinion, guidance on the Local Hatch Act and fundraising, which talks about the Local Hatch Act because we are in a political season within the district, within the country actually, which talks about the Local Hatch Act. It goes into the fundraising rules, those prohibitions, as well as the permissible fundraising activities. Fundraising, as you all know, is prohibited for district government employees when you're engaged in fundraising activities that support a district partisan candidate. So we go into detail about district partisan candidates, those fundraising prohibitions as it applies to whether you're in person and whether you're doing that fundraising on social media. But then we also talk about those permissible fundraising activities. If you're running for an advisory neighborhood commissioner, you're allowed to fundraise for your own campaign. If you are fundraising for a partisan candidate that's not within the district government, that's in a different jurisdiction, you can fundraise for that candidate. And also, if you're designated under the designation rule, you can engage in fundraising activities. But check out those 2 advisory opinions, and we do have some more advisory opinions coming your way in this fiscal year. We have provided 401 answers to informal ethics advice questions. So that's via telephone, email, during our training presentations. I'm very happy about that number. And trust me, they have not all been easy ethics questions. So I'm very proud of the staff for meeting that goal, for getting that large amount of advice questions answered. And we do plan to draft some job aids for you all. That's going to be job aids that assist you in recognizing outside employment that conflicts with district employment, assist you with recognizing conflicts of interest, recognizing gifts prohibitions. So those are in draft and they will be published sometime this fiscal year. Next is our training. I talked about our on-demand trainings. This past April, we launched our learning management system. This is the URL. If you haven't been to the site, you can go there and register, self-register, and take a number of trainings that we have drafted and had created for us by our vendor. But this is our ethics learning management system. It includes courses such as ethical decision making, culture carriers, the role of an ethics and compliance program, receiving gifts, conflicts of interest, financial disclosure statement, and every type of outside employment, post-employment. It talks about all of the ethics rules. We covered every section of the code of conduct and provided an on-demand training for you guys to go in and take that training whenever you have time or whenever you need to, whenever you recognize a situation and you want to apply the rule, you want to engage in some ethics in practice, you can go ahead and log on and take that training. We've also conducted 66 live webinars. Our webinars are very popular. We provide a monthly ethics training, which is the second Wednesday of every month. We also provide trainings upon request. So if your agency is in need of an ethics training, we will be happy to come forth and assist you with that. Whether it's, well, right now we're virtual, but we will be back in person providing in-person ethics trainings soon. But right now we're still virtual. Enforcement. So we put a lot of emphasis on advice and training, but there's also an enforcement aspect to ethics and practice. Our case dispositions, they are not only punitive to the respondent who engaged in the unethical conduct, but it brings awareness to other employees of the type of conduct that is prohibited. So last fiscal year to date, we have initiated 119 investigations, which is a good number, I think. And that doesn't include all the complaints that we receive. So we received several complaints. I don't have the number here, but it's over 119. We received several complaints that actually do not involve code of conduct violations. And those are not turned into investigations. So when I say we initiated 119, those are actual matters that we've investigated. We also closed 124 matters. Out of those investigations, we have issued 10, well, the board has approved 10 negotiated dispositions. I will say that those negotiated dispositions, as well as the two show cause hearings that we've had, there was an uptick for those in outside employment violation. So that means that a few employees engaged in outside employment that conflicted with their district government employment. So that involves engaging in outside employment while you're on duty, using government resources, or it's something where you engaged in outside employment with a company that you might have had some type of jurisdiction over, or your performance involved that company. But most of those involved engaging in outside employment during government time and using government resources. So a few employees took advantage of the virtual setting of the district government, and while they were performing their job duties at home, teleworking for the district government, they decided to seek employment and engage in employment at the same time, virtual employment or in person. A few people did in person while they were engaged in their virtual government employment. So we saw an uptick of outside employment violations prior to the pandemic, post-pandemic, while the district was in a virtual setting. Also, misuse of government property. We saw an uptick of conflicts of interest as well. So again, this is our enforcement information. We've issued 10 negotiated dispositions, 2 show cause orders. And I also will say that not all of our cases end in a negotiated disposition or a show cause order. So they don't all end in public dispositions. There are some minor cases that do result in what we call a non-public informal admonition. So we've issued a few of those as well. But again, ethics in practice does involve enforcement, because that enforcement, those negotiated dispositions, those fines, they work as deterrents for other employees to not engage in that type of conduct. It gives employees awareness. If you recognize that a situation, again, is questionable, you apply the rule, and then you think about a negotiated disposition that you've seen, an enforcement action, and you think about the conduct that occurred with that employee, and then you realize, hey, this is not something that I should engage in, because it's clear that someone else did, and it's BEGA has determined that it violates the ethics rules. All right, our financial disclosure statement program is another big part of BEGA, and what we've done some updates to our e-filing system. I'm sure many of you are ethics counselors on this presentation today, so you are familiar with our FDS process. So I won't bore you with that, but we've taken some strides to try to make the system a little more user-friendly for those who are public filers. We've done an upgrade to the system for advisory neighborhood commissioners, where there's a checkbox as soon as they log on. There's a checkbox that takes them to the form that they have to fill out, so they don't have to go through the entire 15-question form that other folks do. We've also added an e-signature, which certifies the document, the FDS, the statement. We've added an upgrade for our council members who file twice a year. So there is now a button that when they go in and log on, they're able to make sure that they hit the right button for either their April or November filing. And then the certification language assures them that they're only filing for that specific period. So that's a big improvement for us. We've also improved our administrative controls so that when a filer has an issue with the system, our staff can go in and correct that without having to depend on Octo's services. And as you all know, we have added to our team Ms. Millicent Jones, who is now our FDS attorney. Again, I know that many of you are ethics counselors, so I'm sure you're familiar with Ms. Jones by now. Okay, as ethics in practice, we've increased our staff here at BEGA so that we can serve you all in a more efficient manner. We've added a human resources specialist this year. We've also gotten the chief of staff. And the human resources specialist is Miss London Green. Our chief of staff is Miss Christina Mitchell. She was the chief of staff at the Office of Disability Rights. So we're happy to have those two folks here. And then in this fiscal year, we're hiring another attorney advisor, as well as we're adding a position of a supervisory investigator. So that person will be in charge of our investigative team to make sure that our investigations and the investigative process runs more smoothly. We're also updating our website. This has been a project between BEGA and OCTO for the past few months. Our website as it is now, we have a lot of information there, but it's not very user-friendly and the information is not easy to find. So we want you all to be able to go to the website and quickly find a negotiated disposition, quickly find an advisory opinion, or find our schedule for training, request training through the website. So we're updating our website to make it user-friendly. We're updating the overall appearance. And again, we just want you all to be able to utilize it so that you can find the stuff that you need in a faster manner. We want it to be more apparent. We want our documents to be more apparent, our financial disclosure statement information to be more apparent, and that's what this website would do. So that is coming this fiscal year. It's coming sometime this fall, and this is the mock-up of how it will look. So here you have the buttons that show enforcement, advice, training, documents, lobbying, and FDS. So you can click on any one of these buttons and it'll take you to that information quicker than the current website would. So we're excited about that and can't wait to roll that out. And then our lobbyist reporting and registration system. We are planning to do some updates to that e-filing system. I know many of you that are on this call probably don't engage in lobbying as district employees, but that is another branch of BEGA that serves our stakeholders and serves our interests, that we have folks who are engaging in lobbying within the district government to register with us and also to file activity reports so that we know what's going on, who they're lobbying, what they're lobbying about, and that they pay the requisite fees to engage in that lobbying. So we're this fiscal year, we're planning to do some updates to that e-filing system, which will make that process easier for lobbyists. And that is the end of this introduction, as well as the updates. Again, we have an entire week scheduled for you all to check out our presentations and panel discussions that talk about ethics in practice, best practices. If you go on our website, you can go ahead and register for any of the courses that we have scheduled this week. The next one that's going to come up today is Unlocking Positive Values of Ethics. That's at 11:15 a.m. with Marcy Maslow, and then our investigators are going to give a presentation after that. And later today, we have the Ethics Game Show with Senior Attorney Lynn Tran. So again, thank you all for attending. I'm going to check the chat to see if I have any questions. Let's see. I don't see anything in the chat. I think someone had a question about a show cause hearing. So the show cause hearings are our informal hearings. They are presented before the director, me, and the respondent has to show cause as to why they should not be fined for engaging in certain conduct. So we have our open adversarial hearings before the board, and then we have informal hearings before the director. And those informal hearings result in a show cause order. Okay, I don't see anything else in the chat, but again, let's see, Q&A. Okay, I don't see anything else, so I will let you all enjoy the rest of the event. And thank you again for attending. We look forward to serving you for your ethics advice and training needs and anything ethics at all. We look forward to serving you. Don't hesitate to contact us. We look forward to guiding you in your ethics in practice. So we're here to serve you at Bega, and we are happy to do it. And we look forward to seeing you all throughout the rest of this week. Enjoy the rest of your day.